So you people are able to see the board?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So just okay. So anyway, we'll start our discussion. So in the last class, so we have already, I think we are closing on this finite difference method. Okay. So now I see we have seen you followed, right? So only some small aspects are left. So now how do we represent, you see, the boundary conditions essentially in the finite difference method? Okay, so that's what we were seeing in our last class. So now generally, you see, so when you are having this stress-free boundary conditions, okay. Generally, this is a very important boundary condition, you see, on the Earth surface, okay. So when you're having, the Earth surface, because there is no load acting on the Earth surface, so you have to use like, all the stress components will be zero kind of a thing. So now in our finite difference method, you see, we use this anti-symmetry, this concept, okay. So this we try to do this. So what we do is anyway sigma at if we the surface to be zero. So what we try to do is we write as minus x kind of thing where x is equal to 0 is your surface. Okay. So at surface say so sigma of minus x minus these things. Okay. So this will be 0 kind of a thing itself. So for this last class we have written the equations also in finite difference format. And I think we have got some expressions. Okay, see something like we derived right already. Minus half is equal to see minus tm half you followed. So because in the finite difference you will have these type of expressions will be there. Then you have this 3 by 2 say the traction. Okay, so this is also minus tm you see 3 by 2. But when it comes to the velocities, okay, so this will be so you remember what about the velocity? So this is for the stresses. Okay, so all the stress components are antisymmetric. But what about the velocity? You remember last class what we have written? Yeah. So what is this quantity minus 1? That is above the surface. Okay. So suppose here these points anyway. So now what do you write here? Now what about velocities?
Symmetric.
It is symmetric actually. Okay, so we wrote as m minus half actually. Okay, or now at the surface say at the free surface, if you take the velocity, say suppose if incoming wave is some I is there. Okay, so now outgoing wave is also same actually because of symmetry. So velocities you followed it, they become double kind of a thing. But now when it comes to the stresses, say so you are having two stresses. One is the upcoming stress and the downgoing stress kind of a thing. So we are doing something like you followed it I minus I kind of a thing. So this becomes 0 kind of a thing. Okay. So here whenever you are having a free surface say so now that to represent in finite difference we use this concept. So anti-symmetry then symmetry kind of a thing. Okay. So now suppose if it is a fixed boundary condition, so now how do you handle? Now suppose if the end is fixed, now what is that you have to do? Now tell me what is that you will do when the ends are fixed? Now what is the boundary condition when the edge? Now so like you would have done in say like you have done in fixed beam you followed in our strength of materials. So now when a beam is fixed, what happens? What is the boundary condition? No.
So usually displacement is 0 and slope is 0.
Displacement is 0, slope is 0. So now what happens? So now how do you implement that in finite difference? No. So suppose if you want some quantity to be 0 at the surface or maybe wherever your boundary. So now what is that you have to invoke? No. So how do you represent? So here, we are invoking stress to be 0. So for that, what is that you have done in finite difference? So we assume stress is, so this anti-symmetry kind of a thing. So when you are having fixed boundary condition, if you want to make velocity to be 0, what is that you have to do? Velocity should be, you have to make antisymmetric kind of a thing. So automatically you followed it, they get cancelled, against each other. Okay, so this is how in finite difference, the boundary condition also happens actually. Then the most important thing what we were discussing was how to represent, these infinite mediums. So this is a very, very important thing, the infinite boundary condition. Okay. So you are having, you followed, right? Say like, for example, you are having earth, say, let us say you have a huge, you followed it, this medium, but now you are modeling only this portion actually. Okay. So since you cannot model the whole earth or, large scale, so this portion only is our finite difference model. Okay. So we are doing like this. So this is my finite difference model or the region. So this much region only, I am modeling in my finite difference approach actually. So now what should be the boundary condition at these places at the bottom edge? You followed the boundary condition here, boundary condition here, the boundary condition here actually. Okay. So now as already I told you in the last class, so when a wave comes, hits this boundary, say something like this. Okay. So in reality, what is happening? In reality, there is no boundary because it is infinite medium. Because of our computational problem, we are modeling only, this much piece only. You followed in our reality. So now, what should be the boundary condition? We should apply at this place. So what is that we told in our last class? See, when a
So it should
wave
have
comes here,
purpose of
say,
observing.
uh,
It
absorbing
should
only, but what should
and
happen?
it should
See, when
observe the amplitude
it should
increase.
absorb the amplitude. So what happens if wave is going like this, say, so it will be like this only. Okay. So but since you have made a boundary here, so but in reality the wave is going like this. There is no discontinuity in the wave. Okay. But you can't model the full region or something. So now we have to use, like last class I told you, the absorbing boundary conditions. Okay. So these are, very special boundary conditions to represent, the infinite mediums. Okay. So sometimes in finite element also say they use what they call as an infinite element, they say. Okay. That is how you see they write infinite element or something like that. So how do we make it in our finite difference or any numerical approaches? Okay. So this is a very, very important thing when you are modeling this very large regions with a small model itself. Okay. So now to do this one, say like there are several methods are there. Okay. For this absorbing boundary condition, two are widely used. One that is a paraxial boundary conditions, they say. Okay. So paraxial boundary condition, they say. So this is one way of handling these things. Other one which is right now everybody uses, recent in the last 10 years, say. So this came into very, very popular because it works excellent. That is a perfectly matched layer. Okay. So this is PML boundary condition, they say. You followed. So these are the right now you see this is the one which is widely used nowadays. Okay. So we will just see the theory what they do. Of course this is the one which is widely we are going to use, of course, in all the codes, but this also sometimes in the olden days people were using. The concept is very simple here. Okay. So like for example what they try to do is so what they do is in this perfectly matched layer or paraxial boundary condition, suppose this is your model domain, say you are modeling only this much portion. Okay. In our finite difference, this is our grid. So this portion only we are modeling, say. Okay. So what this thing says is you followed it, you take a slightly enlarged region or whatever here. Okay. So this portion, so we model in finite difference this much area actually. Okay. So now anyway surface of the earth is stress free, so here you have sigma is 0, but now at these places, so you have to use the absorbing boundary condition, the sides as well as the bottom, because your things are infinite actually. So this also is infinite, so this also is infinite. So what we try to do is, so this is the region you see we model in our finite difference. Okay. So now what we do is, so in this area, say, so we have our equation of equilibrium, that is the velocity stress formulation. So all the equations, right? Last time we have discussed this in great detail. So velocity stress formulation, so we have this equations also. Okay. So now in our finite difference approach, say, See, whatever you do, like viscoelastic thing or whatever things are there, in what type of form, this finite difference wants. See, like for example, when we discussed viscoelastic material, how to represent a viscoelastic material in finite difference, how did we do that one? Anybody remember? See, like viscoelastic material we have discussed. How do we represent a viscoelastic material in finite difference? See, how do we represent? See, previously we have discussed, right? What is the equation for viscoelastic medium? How did we represent?
Strain rate.
No, strain rate was there. You have to write it in a integral format, or
Yes,
you can
yes.
write. What is
relaxation tensor?
No. What is the main? Why you are doing all those relaxation, and all those things? Finally, what did we do in the end for viscoelastic material? How we are representing?
In terms of convolution.
That was long back in convolution. In finite difference approach, what did we do in the end? So I don't know if people are reading or not. What did we do in viscoelastic theory in the end? What did we discuss finally? I think 2 or 3 or 4 classes something we spent on viscoelasticity. So finally, what is that we did? We have defined something, no special way of writing the viscoelastic things. What is that we did? See, you are having anyway integral format. You have this viscoelastic
coefficient.
No, anelastic coefficients we did, but what is the main advantage of anelastic coefficients? No, it's good. Anelastic coefficients, we have memory variables, those things. But what is the main philosophy behind deriving this anelastic coefficients, memory variables? What is the speciality?
That elastic portion was separated.
That was fine. But apart from that, what is the main basis of doing this way? Why did we derive all this anelastic memory you followed, right? You can write in terms of creep function or the relaxation itself. No need to write anelastic coefficient. Memory variables are not at all required actually for calculations. But why we did all those things in finite difference? See, what is the main principle? What was the main motivation behind these anelastic coefficients, memory variables, that standard linear solids? You remember, we wrote in terms of anelastic coefficients. What was the main philosophy? Why? So nobody remembers the basic philosophy I'm asking you. See, for any viscoelastic material, how do you write the stress strain relation? There are several ways that you can write in terms of integral, that is a convolution format. But how do you represent integrals in finite difference? You cannot represent an integral, right, in finite difference approach. Finite difference starts with the Taylor series expansions. So representation of integrals is a big headache. What did we do? We tried to avoid integrals. What did we do finally?
In differentiation.
So why do you have written in differentiation equation? So how do we avoid integration? So to avoid this integration, we brought this concept of anelastic coefficients. We brought the concept of memory variables. Finally, say for viscoelastic material, the stress strain law can be written in terms of ordinary differential equations. You understand? So this is how we have written. What is the advantage of writing equations? It is very easy, you understand, right, to represent in a finite difference format. You followed? So in a finite difference approach, say solving integral is complex, but whereas solving ordinary differential equation is very easy. That is a basic philosophy we have done for viscoelastic material. Okay, so now the same concept comes to here also. So now here we are having the absorbing boundary conditions, which means the wave should not come back. There should be no the reflections kind of a thing. All those things are there. So no reflection, wave should not come back. So this is our boundary condition. So now how to represent a boundary condition in finite difference? So in finite difference, if you write the boundary conditions in integral formats, it becomes very, very difficult kind of a thing. So here also the basic philosophy in finite difference, if you want to write boundary condition, or if you want to write material, or whatever you want to do, say, if you can express in terms of a differential equation, say, it is very, very easy to solve. So this is a basic philosophy behind this finite difference approach. You understand? So if you write it in terms of some integral formats, it is useless actually for finite difference approaches. So this absorbing boundary condition also, if we can able to write in terms of some difference equations, then it is very, very easy to implement in finite difference. So this is the concept. Okay, that is why we have done all those anelastic coefficients, memory variables. You followed. Otherwise, why do you want anelastic and memory? All these are junk. You followed, right? You can use a convolution itself, because it is very difficult to represent. Only we have done all that work. Okay, so please remember, these things. Otherwise, it becomes difficult. Okay. So this is a main philosophy. Okay, so this paraxial boundary conditions, say, okay, so these boundary conditions are even perfectly matched layer also, paraxial, or this PML boundary conditions. Okay, so the main concept behind these boundary conditions are, we represent the boundary conditions in terms of the differential equations. Okay, so this is the main the concept or the clue which we are going to use actually. Okay, so now the paraxial boundary condition, what happens is like this. Okay, so now this was a very old approach, and it was derived by Clayton. Okay, so he is a professor in Caltech. So this fellow's PhD thesis maybe linguist actually. So this fellow, they published in 1977. Okay, so a paper in BSSA. So the paper is available online, so you can download also this paper. So this is a very, very important paper which started this paraxial boundary conditions. Okay, so what they define is like example like this. So suppose if you are having any equation, say, so any scalar wave equation, say, okay, so just for I am just for just illustration, I'm just writing here. So suppose if you are having any acoustic equation, okay, so acoustic equation is same as wave equation, only in wave equation you have displacement, but here you have a pressure kind of a thing. So dou square p by dou x square plus dou square p by some dou z square, 2 dimensions, okay, is equal to some minus v square is the velocity, so dou square p by dou t square. Okay, so this equation is same as our wave equation, only instead of p you write ux, or maybe the potentials, say phi and psi, you will get the same equation. So let us say this is my wave equation. Okay, so now I have to write the boundary condition for paraxial thing. So now before writing here, say, okay, so now what is the solution of a wave equation? So if you write in terms of the plane waves, so if you write the solution in terms of plane waves, say, okay, so which means so your p you write as some e to the power of I kx into x minus I kz into z minus I omega t. So this is the solution. So now you substitute in this expression. Okay, so now what happens when you substitute the solution here? Say, what do you get generally? Previous classes we have derived, right? So if you substitute e to the power of I kx minus omega t in the differential equation, say, okay, what do you get? Where did we did in our previous classes? No, why do you substitute a plane wave solution? No.
So we get two roots.
No, two roots, but what for we did that? See,
To know whether the system is stable or unstable.
Fantastic. That is related to what? So it is stable or not, fine, but finally you followed it when you substitute. So what do you get? See, previously we have done, right, for wave equations also. What do we get? Stability is fine, but what do you get? See, what do you get? You write, omega is equal to, you remember, some k, c, sine omega, all those things. What do you get essentially? You get dispersion relations actually. You follow, right? Of course, this is also stability also. That is also true. Newman analysis of stability also we say. Okay. So this, if you substitute in this expression, you will get, of course, stability and the dispersion equation also. So now here for this problem, say, so if you substitute in that equation, And if you solve for you see, because all are the plane waves, I omega, all those things, the derivatives are very easily to calculate. So solve for kz, just substitute in that equation. So you get kz is equal to plus or minus, you see, omega by v. Okay, 1 minus v square kx square, say, by using omega square. So this you have a square root actually. So you can prove yourself. You just substitute only. So you get this type of the waves actually. So now what is this plus sign and negative sign indicate here? Now, see, plus sign and negative sign, what does they indicate? Now, see, what is the meaning of this one? I kz into z, then I kz into z. What's the meaning of these two?
So basically it is magnitude. It is showing how it
No,
is
no.
decreasing, exponentially decreasing or increasing function.
Please see here, you have I. You follow, right? If imaginary thing was not there, then you can say exponential increase or exponential decrease. Okay, but now you are having e to the power of I theta. That is sine theta plus I cos theta will be there. If you write e to the power of minus I theta, say you write as sine theta minus the I cos theta kind of a thing. So what is this one? So remember, right? Long back we said. So this, what is that it indicates? It is a wave going, you follow, right, in one direction, other one is in the opposite direction. So that is how these things goes. So now in this equation, so if you take the the positive root actually, okay. So if you take this positive root, now what happens when kz is positive, say? So when kz is positive, so you have this minus I kz into z will be there, and you follow, right, when so this root will be there. So what this root indicates, a positive and this one. Now, so as already I told you, the positive root it indicates you follow, right, if I'm moving in the opposite direction plus direction, you have these type of waves. So what one does is, in our paraxial thing is, so you expand this positive root in terms of Taylor series, say. Okay, so if you represent in terms of Taylor series, that is the square root expression. Okay, so this entire expression, so if you write in terms of the Taylor series, and if you include only the first term, so v kz by w, so this you v by w dump this side, so you can write this as 1 plus, and the order of this equation, say, so v kx by w, okay, whole square. So now if we include the next term in the Taylor series, say, for the square root expansion, okay, so we have v kz by w, so this is 1 minus half, so v kx by w whole square plus order. So in the Taylor series, you see v kx by omega, okay, so whole to the power of 4. So this is a term. Then you have another term. If you include next term in the Taylor series, okay, so 1 minus the 3 by 4 v kx by omega whole square, 1 minus say 1 by 4 v kx by omega square plus, okay, 0. You have these are including the third terms, okay, 6 this one. So this is basically the first term in the Taylor series. So here we have included two terms, okay. Now here we have included three terms, and then you can do some algebra and you can write in this fashion, okay. So these are the three roots. So now these three roots, say, so now when the root is positive, because of the sign convention and so many things, this is a positive root. If you take, say, so automatically it damps the solution. You follow, it's a long time we have said, when it is a positive, and then if you take the, and if it is say, so suppose if so if you say that this vkx, so if you write in this expression, suppose if vkx, say, by omega, suppose if it is greater than 1, what happens to this square root? See here what happens when this entire expression, if it is greater than 1, okay. So now what happens here? So 1 minus that term will be negative thing will be there. What is the square root of negative?
So we'll get complex variable.
So you will get complex roots, and in that complex roots, okay, so if you substitute, you have the minus and other things, so you will get, you followed, right, one root which will damp the solution, because I into I becomes I square, and I square is -1, so automatically the complex portions it takes into this category. So now the concept here is, so this root so this root it damps the solution. Okay, so it damps the solution. So what we try to do here is, there are some more extra approximations are there. So now if you try to find out the ordinary difference equations, okay, which for which the dispersion relations, okay, so for which you see the dispersion relations are given by the above expressions, can be represented by using the above equations, by the above three conditions, say. You followed. So that is for A1, so you can write the difference equation, you see, dou P by, you see, dou Z, okay, plus 1 by, V, dou P by dou T. So this is a difference equation. So for this difference equation, if you substitute e to the power of ikx, ikz, I omega t, what happens is the dispersion equation is, V kz by omega is equal to 1 actual. So this you will get from for the first case. So this is a ordinary differential equation for which we can write the dispersion relation like this. Now for the second case, say, what is the dispersion relation for the second case? So this is our dispersion relation, where we have included only the first two terms in your Taylor series. So the corresponding ODE, say, if you write, so dou square P by dou Z into dou T, plus 1 by V dou square P by dou T square minus V by 2, so dou square P by dou X square. So this is the equation for which that is a dispersion relation. Now for the third equation, say, where you are including three terms in the Taylor series, so this expression becomes dou cube P by dou Z and dou T square, okay, minus V square by 4 dou cube P by dou Z dou X square plus 1 by V, okay, so dou cube P by dou T cube minus 3V by 4 into dou cube P by dou T into dou X square is equal to 0. So these are the three ODEs actually corresponding to this differential, this dispersion relations. So this is a condition here. So this condition you followed it. So these are the dispersion relations, for these three conditions. Okay. So now what our paraxial boundary conditions, you see, what that fellow says is, so I have a medium, say. Okay. So this is my medium here. So now in this medium, my equation of equilibrium will be this equation of equilibrium I will solve. That is the original equation of equilibrium. I think I will draw it properly. Now, so now this is my, the domain. So this is my final difference region. So now in this region, say, my equation of equilibrium will be dou square P by dou X square plus dou square P by dou Z square, say, is equal to 1 by v square dou square P by dou T square. So this is my equation of motion actual in this region. Now for this absorbing boundary condition, say, so this is my extra region which I am solving here. Okay, so in this region, whatever we are doing here, okay, so in this region also my equation of equilibrium is these three actual. Okay, I can take A1 or A2 or A3. Of course, which is better here, A1, A2, A3, or which is the one? So now in the Taylor series, say, the first one, you are taking only the first term, that is one only. So V kz by omega is equal to 1 you are taking here, which is you followed, right, not that accurate or something like that. So A2 or A3 you followed it, you can take this equation. So now what to do is, so now what we try to do here is, so here the equation of motion is different in the absorbing region. and it is different in your original region actually. So now what happens in the when the wave here say, so waves comes like this. So when the wave comes, it is like this actually. Now what happens when it comes to the absorbing region? Now what is that? It comes to the absorbing region. See, what is the dispersion relation in the absorbing region? See, in the original domain, so what is the dispersion equation in the original domain? So this is original domain. So this is a dispersion equation. Kz is equal to, this is our equation. And you have both positive root, negative root, and all other roots are there. So you will get a nice solution actually. But now in the this domain, say that is in our PML, so this absorbing boundary condition region, that's a paraxial region. And now what is the dispersion equation here? Now what's the dispersion equation here? So now among the two roots actual of your original thing, we have taken only one root which damps the solution itself actually, okay, because of imaginary or positive root or whatever is that one. So that damps the solution. So now here what we do is we solve, instead of solving this equation, say, so here we solve this equation, but in this equation what happens is so once the wave comes actual, okay, so automatically, because we are including so automatically you see it dies down. So in the top as well as in the bottom, say, so when the wave is coming like this, when once it hits this boundary, so automatically you follow it, it dies down actually, okay. So this is what we call as the paraxial boundary conditions. So now what is meant by paraxial boundary condition? How you are representing this boundary condition? No. So what's the basic philosophy? Now what is that we are doing in this region? Have you understood that?
So we are not allowing wave to die out, sir.
No, that is fine. That is a physical meaning. But mathematically, how we are representing this boundary condition? See what we have done here. So original equation you have. So original equation will have all types of roots will be there. Plus root, negative root, all those roots will be there. Now in the paraxial region, what is that we are doing? We are now in among the two roots, whatever roots you have, you will be one root which will be, which will not damp the solution. Other one you have all kinds of combinations will be there. Now in the paraxial region, what we are doing is you always are going for damped solution only. So for the solution to get damped quickly, say, okay. So what we have done is we are taking only one, the root itself. So these are the dispersion relations. But as already I told you, the finite differences say, whatever you have, these type of equations are very difficult to represent in finite difference. You have to convert this into a corresponding ordinary differential equation. So this corresponds to this equation. So now the solution of this equation will be always like this only, okay. So it damps. So this equation solution also will be you followed right like this, or this equation, say the third, where you have included all the higher order terms. So obviously all of them will be, you see, completely damped kind of a thing. So now so this is paraxial bound. So what you try to do in calculations is, so here you are having this ordinary differential equation. So here you solve this differential equation itself actually, okay. So that is how we represent this paraxial boundaries of the absorbed boundaries, okay. So this is one way, people used to do it, you follow right in the long, in the olden days. So generally, so at this boundaries say, okay. So now if you write, you can write also. So let us say the incident wave, okay, the wave which is hitting the boundary. If you write this as, ikxx, plus ikz into z minus I omega t, say. So this is our incident wave, and this is a reflected wave, okay, which is reflecting back from the boundary. So if you write this as some r, e to the power of ikx into x minus ikz into z minus I omega t, okay. So you can see the sign change. So I means, wave propagating in one direction, positive direction. Minus means, it is basically a reflected wave itself. So now at near the boundary, say, okay. So near the boundary, so what we are trying to do is, your pi plus pr, okay. So if you want to calculate, say, so now, so this has to satisfy the boundary equation and the interior equation. So if you apply this boundary condition, this A2, this boundary condition, that means, so this is a differential equation. Okay, so if you substitute in this equation and you solve for all the terms, say Pi as well as PR. Okay, so you will have, so if you substitute, you see, you will get Kz into omega, so Pi minus R times PR minus, you see, omega square by V minus V by 2, so Kz square, so multiplied by, you see, Pi plus R times, you see, PR. So this is equal to 0 you get, and finally this R, say how much it is getting reflected, is given by this expression R minus half, so Vkx by omega whole square minus Vk z by omega, okay, by, you see, 1 minus half, so Vkx by omega whole square plus, so Vkz by omega. Okay, so this is R. So this tells you the ratio actual. Okay, how much portion is getting reflections. So this is our the reflection coefficient or whatever. So now in reality, what is that we want? What should be this R value?
Close to 0.
It has to be 0 actually, because so this should be 0. That is what, you see, we want. So you can write in terms of some thetas also. Okay, so you can write in terms of theta, this Vkx by Vz and other things also you can do. So this R, say, you can write in terms of theta. So 1 minus, you can substitute some small current things are there. 1 plus cos theta, say, some whole square, I think, will come. So you can find out the angle also. So theta is your angle of incidence, okay, measured from the normal, okay, normal to the boundary. So this is what we call as reflection coefficient also. So this equation, it depends on this one, and if you can plot it also. Okay, this paraxial boundary condition, if you try to plot this on a graph, say that theta for variety of angles. Okay. So theta, what it does is, it is like this. Suppose if this is our boundary, say, okay. So let us say a wave is coming like this. Okay. So this angle is, you can say theta. So now, you can have what is theta for this type of a wave. So suppose if a wave is hitting like this, say, so theta is, see what is a theta? 90 degrees actual. Okay, suppose if the wave is hitting just like this on this itself, then theta is 0 degree kind of a thing. So the reflections, the paraxial thing, what it says is, you will have this type of thing. So now if you use this A1 boundary condition, say, okay, so the waves will be something like this. So if you use that A1, that is only the first term in the Taylor series. So, so let us say this is a 10 degrees. Okay, so this will be something like this. Now, if you use, A2 boundary conditions, say that is 2 terms in the Taylor series. So this becomes, A2. Okay, and finally, I think when it goes to, the 90, all of them will merge. Just let me write. Yeah. Okay, so it goes something like this. Now this is our A3. So if you try to plot all of them, so they go, like this. Okay, so this is our almost 90 degrees. Okay, so this is A1 and A2, and this is A3. So this set automatically, this almost somewhere is 40 degrees it comes, whereas this case it comes something around 50 degrees kind of a thing. And now what does it tells you? And this is our R actually. So now what does it tells you? So now for wave, suppose if you use A1 boundary condition, that means, in the Taylor series expansion, you have got only include the first term in the thesis, in the Taylor series expansion. What it says is, so if the wave is hitting, less than 8 degrees, like this, what will be the reflection for this? If it is less than here, 10 degrees, what will be the reflection? What is amplitude of
no
difference?
reflection.
No reflection. So what does it mean? So this wave just passes like this actual. So which is same as our infinite median. Suppose if the wave angle of incidence is some 60 degrees, then what happens? If you use A1, that is the first term in the thing, or let us say, suppose if you use A3 boundary condition, say, now for waves up to 45 degrees angle, what will be the reflection? Say 45 degrees angle. So something you followed, right? Like this. This is a 45 degrees angle. Okay. And now what is the reflection for this wave if I use A3 boundary condition? Now. So let us say this is, 1. I will write the units also. So the maximum value it is 1 and the lowest value is 0. Okay, so this is our limits. So now suppose if we take 45 degrees and if the angle is, and if we are using A3, say 3 terms in the Taylor series expansion, so reflection coefficient will be almost 0 itself actual R. But if you use the A1, what happened? There is only the first term in this one. So you will have you followed it. So for 40 degrees, say, so this if you try to draw this one, approximately this turns out to be, you see, 0.1 or something like that. You get this numbers. So what does it tells you about the paraxial? Yeah, so now as angle of incidence is increasing, say, so now what happens?
Reflection also increases.
Reflection also increases, and if it is a 90-degree wave means, if it is a 90-degree waves, say, so now what happens? What will be the reflection? What is the maximum value? See here, reflection is same as 1 itself. So what does it mean when R is equal to 1, say? So if P is going like this actual, R is nothing but, so you can see the incident wave is Pi, okay? Now the reflected wave is also same as the plane wave only, but only thing is it has an amplitude, okay? So now when, the angle of incidence is 90 degrees, say, so now what is happening? R is becoming 1, which means your Pi is PR is same as Pi itself actually. Okay. So whatever wave has in, so which means you are hitting a wave, same wave is with the same amplitude, it is coming back itself. Which means so your outgoing wave is like this. So your reflected wave is also like this. So you have to sum it up. So automatically its amplitude becomes the double kind of a thing. So this paraxial boundary condition say, so this was the main, the limitation actual of the paraxial, which that's why you follow, right? This PML came into picture. Okay. So the main limitation you followed, right? So the reflection, these are all artificial reflections. In reality, there is no reflection. Okay. So artificial reflections, say, so they increase. Okay. So with, this angle. So it doesn't work the nicely in practice. So most of the people, if you see the finite difference codes, there nobody uses A1 boundary condition. Okay, this is just for illustration they do, but many of the finite difference codes, they use this A2 or A3 boundary condition. But A2 or A3, of course, it is much better than A1. So what happens is, of course, at a boundary you will have waves coming in all kinds of directions. See, every wave will have 0 degree, all kinds of angles will be there, but error will be more for these type of the waves which are highly inclined, which are perfectly perpendicular to the surface. Say. So you will have some errors will be there, but if it is outside 90, then obviously the errors will come down, and this paraxial boundary conditions will give you followed, right, some nice the results itself. Of course, this is the main limitation actually with this paraxial boundary conditions. Okay, that's why people went for this PML. Okay. So you followed it. So now, of course, there are so many things people have to read and understand. But what's the main concept of observing boundary conditions, or how we are representing boundary condition? See, in finite difference methods, whether it is a viscoelastic thing, whether you want boundary condition, you want to represent anything in finite difference, how you have to write? How do you represent a boundary condition? How do you represent viscoelastic? How do you represent anything? Say the finite difference you have to write in terms of. That is the main philosophy you followed, right? So everything you have to write in terms of differential equation. So why? So if you write in terms of differential equation, say explain, the coding is becomes very very easy. So this is the main concept. Okay, so now let us see this. So this is a old one, paraxian. Just for completeness, I have told you. But right now, many courts they don't use this, this boundary condition. So people use, this perfectly matched, the layer theory. Okay, so this is a new theory, and it works much better than the previous case. Okay, PML. So here also the concept is same actually. So if this is our medium, say, so you want to model. So what here we do is, as already I told you, you have to represent everything in terms of boundary or different equations. So we model, this much domain. Okay. So this is my original domain. So this is my domain, which is of interest here. So now we model some extra region also. Okay. So we call this as PML region. So concept is same. So here you will be having one equation of motion. So in PML region also say you have to derive another equation of motion. Now, and how this equation of motion should be in PML region? What should be the solution of this equation? What is that we are expecting? See, previous case also we have seen
decreasing solution.
So it should be damped. You followed it. Whatever comes from the original equation. So in this region, say, so you want a wave like this. This is in the original region. Now what happens in the PML region? It should decrease actually. You followed, right? So this should happen in the PML region. So now what you have to do is you have to find out, you have to derive a new equation of motion in the PML region such that it decays as quickly as done, and there should be no, obviously you see, no reflections will happen actually. Suppose if it doesn't decay fast, say, then only you will have this paraxial, these problems comes into picture here. And now the concept is very simple for PML layer. Okay, so if you want to have a damped solution, say, what is that you have to do now? So in the PML region, the equation of motion is very, the concept is very simple. What we do is, suppose if this region is undamped medium, say, okay, let us, for example, there is no damping here. In our original problem, the concept in PML is this region actual. So you model this as a viscoelastic medium. You followed. So if you assume PML as a viscoelastic medium, so now what happens when the medium is viscoelastic? Now what happens? So in viscoelastic medium, what happens? What is that you have? So in elastic medium, what do you have? See, previously we have discussed, right, in elastic materials, so you have only, you don't have any damping, but in viscoelastic material you have already
So damping.
Damping is there already.
There is also memory in viscoelastic medium.
Memory is there, but damping is there, right? So it automatically decays. Okay. So the main idea behind this PML, the concept is, so if you have, so this absorbing region, say, whatever region you are having, you model it as a viscoelastic material. That is a simple concept actually in our PML theory. And the viscoelastic has some that memory variable, the constants are there. Use that you have to select. So you have to select these viscoelastic parameters such that the solution decays, you followed it quickly, kind of a thing itself. So now if you see our equations of motion, say, so our the stress equations of motion here, and the velocity, the stress formulation which we have written. Just 1 second. See, these are the original equations, okay, so which we solve in original domain. So in this original domain, say, so velocity stress formulation, you see. So this is our velocity stress formulation, okay. So that is dou v by dou t is equal to b dou sigma by dou x, and we have dou sigma by dou t is equal to m into dou v by dou x. So this is our original, you see, the velocity stress formulation in one dimension. Okay. So now to represent this perfectly matched layer, say, so we do, you know, something like this. Just one second. Yeah. So now these equations, if you write in Fourier domain, say, okay, you write e to the power of ik, you know, I omega t. If you remove the time, this one, so this becomes I omega into b. So b into dou sigma by dou x, and this equation becomes an I omega into sigma m into dou v by dou x. So you have taken time dependence as I to the power of I omega t. Okay, so you get this expression. So now this operator is there, so dou by dou x actual. Okay, so this operator, what we do in perfectly matched layer, so in PML region, say. Okay, so this operator, you know, we replace with respect to another new variable. So instead of x, we write it in terms of this expression 1 by s into, you know, dou by dou x actually. And s is, you know, some variables we put gamma plus some omega, some alpha plus you know, I omega. So we replace x with x hat actually. So now if we substitute, say, so this gamma, okay, and this omega, then this alpha, so they are nothing but, you know, they are all functions of x. Okay, and then they define, you see, the PML profile. So this PML medium profile, you know, is denoted by these three variables. Okay, so this S is known as, you know, sometimes, you know, in PML as a stretching factor. Okay, so this is also known as stretching factor. So now if you substitute, say, this in our expression, so your dou by dou x, so this dou by dou x can be written as, you know, so s into dou by dou x hat. So this expression, say, so substitute dou by wherever dou by dou x is there in our velocity stress formulation, say, you replace with x, you know, these new expressions. Okay, so what happens is, you know, so if you substitute here, so I have I omega into, you know, this v. So 1 by gamma, so b into dou sigma by dou x minus some d, a plus I times omega, so b into dou sigma by dou x. Okay, the other equation says, so I omega into sigma, so this is 1 by gamma, so m into dou v by dou x minus d by, you know, a plus I omega m into dou v by dou x. So these are our new equations, and our a is, you know, alpha plus this omega by gamma, and our d, say, is, you know, some gamma by this omega by gamma square. Okay, so these are our equations. So now you can do the, you know, the inverse, or you can write this in terms of, you know, some new functions. We can define these auxiliary functions. So we bring some new, you know, auxiliary functions. If you call these expressions, say, so theta of omega, if you write this as minus d by, you know, a plus I times omega, so b into dou sigma by dou x, and some, you know, these functions omega as, you know, minus d by a plus I omega, so b m into, sorry, dou b by dou x, say. Okay, then the equation, so this if you substitute in this expression. Okay, so you can write nicely this expressions as I omega into nu, so this in b is equal to 1 by gamma, so b into dou sigma by dou x plus theta of omega. Okay, and the second equation, say, I omega into sigma 1 by gamma, so m into dou v by dou x plus, you know, this I eta of omega. Okay, so now if you do inverse Fourier transform, say, take IFFT with respect to time. Okay, so these van terms vanishes, so dou v by dou t is equal to 1 by gamma, so b into dou sigma by dou x plus theta of t. Okay, and similarly, say, dou sigma by dou t is equal to 1 by gamma, so m into dou v by dou x plus, you know, psi of t. Okay, so now so this psi of t also, so these are our fundamental equations actually. So now in our, you know, original medium, say, what is our equations in the original medium? So in the original medium, these are our equations. Dou v by dou t, these are our equations. Now in our perfectly matched layers, what is the equation of equilibrium which we are solving? So all the expressions you see, if you compare this with the previous expressions, everything is remaining, the same. The only thing is, we have this additional, the theta and gamma, which comes into these two terms are there, and of course you have this 1 by gamma. So this is the equation of motion we try to solve in our perfectly matched layer actually. Okay, and you can you find, so this is theta of t, say, so this is theta of t also. So we have written already the theta of omega, these expressions here. So this also, if you write it in time domain by taking an inverse Fourier transform with respect to omega, so you can write these expressions also like this. So a into theta of omega, those expression I omega into theta of omega is equal to minus d times b dou sigma by dou x, and we have a psi of omega plus I omega psi of omega. So this is minus d m dou v by dou x. So this also you take a Fourier transform. So you have dou by dou t theta of t, say, plus a into theta of t is equal to minus db dou sigma by dou x and dou by dou t. Okay, psi of t plus a psi of t is equal to minus d times m dou v by dou x. Okay, so these are our the fundamental the equations actually. So now what does it tells you physically? So now these are the equations for theta and psi, and the basic equations are just now we wrote, no? So dou v by dou t, okay, is equal to 1 by gamma. So b dou sigma by dou x plus theta of t. Then other equation is dou sigma by dou t 1 by gamma. So m dou v by dou x plus this psi of t actual. So now what does it indicate? So these are the basic equation of motion you see in our perfectly matched layer actual. So original equations we have, and now these are the new original equations are dou v by dou t, b dou sigma by dou x, and dou sigma by dou t, say, is m into dou v by dou x. So these are the original equations for the original medium. Now in perfectly matched layers, say, what we have done is, so the same equations are same, but we have added some the extra terms, gamma, theta, this thing, and your theta, this zeta, say, so they satisfy another ordinary differential equations. So now what is this equations? When you write like this, what you are exactly physically, what type of equations you are solving, what type of medium it is? So you remember the viscoelastic ordinary differential equations which we wrote long back in terms of unelastic coefficients. How do they look like? You remember long back we wrote for memory variables, for viscoelastic materials. How do those equations? If we compare this with respect to other equations, you remember. So the equations are exactly same.
Single
actually.
order, yes, sir. Both are single order.
Of course, single order only. No. But what are these coefficients, theta and zeta? So this is our original equation is this one. Now we have added some extra. What do these things physically they are trying to do in the medium? What are these theta and zeta physically? See, this is our original wave equation, undamped medium. Okay. Now this equation, if I add theta psi and this theta psi also, they satisfy another equation, say, which is some other ODE kind of a thing which you have. So what is the theta and psi? What are those zeta? What do they do to the medium?
They increase in
Damping.
damping.
Damping, or what do you call them? Unelastic coefficients actually. You followed. So anyway, so perfect. What is meant by perfectly matched layer? So now what is that PML layer means? It is essentially your PML is nothing but, you see, a viscoelastic layer. That's all. Okay. And of course it has unknowns like a theta. You followed it. Of course, theta, zeta, they depend on this A, B, D, you followed it. D, of course, M is a material property, so that is known to us. So A, D, you followed it. So these are, and gamma, these are the unknowns actually. So if you know A, D, and then gamma, I think, you can find out, you can define. So this gamma, alpha, of course, alpha is inside, you can, rewrite those expressions. So these are nothing but the viscoelastic material properties of our, the medium itself. So perfectly matched layer. So this is a layer. What we try to do is, so it is same as, a viscoelastic layer actually. So now in our medium, say, so now if you have any medium, so this is our original medium. So what we do is we add one more small layer here. So now in this region, say, the equation of motion is this one. But whereas in this region, say, perfectly matched layer, this is our, the equation of equilibrium actually. So this is the concept behind this PML, theory itself. So, and of course, if you try to simulate also the incident wave or something, so when a wave goes like this, say, it will be like this undamped, but once it enters this one unit, quickly you followed it, it dies down, so that there will be no reflections back, nothing is going to happen, and this performs exactly same as, infinite medium itself. Okay, so this is the main, the concept. Okay, so, so these parameters, say, your gamma, this, whatever this, I think gamma, then we had, this gamma, this one, and alpha, say. So these are, they act as viscoelastic parameters. Okay, so to make the solution, die down quickly. So that is the basic concept of our, this perfectly matched layer itself. So now to represent it in a finite difference format, so it is very, very easy, because, the boundary conditions also are written in terms of, the ODEs actually, very, very easy. So you have to represent this in a finite difference. So if you want to write in a finite difference, say, okay, so it is very easy. So in the finite difference equations you can write, okay, so there you can write like this. So theta m, so if you use central difference formula, say half, so theta m plus, you see, half plus theta m minus half, and so dou theta by dou t, okay, the first derivative. So you can write as, 1 by delta, so theta, m plus half minus theta m minus half. So you use the central difference scheme for this one. So now that equations for theta can be written as, so theta m plus, it's very easy. M plus half is nothing but is some 2 minus a times delta by using 2 plus a times delta. So theta m minus half minus 2 times d delta, okay, by using 2 plus a times delta, okay, so b into dou sigma by dou x, okay, at m. So this is the final difference equation for theta, that is this equation. Okay, so this we are writing it in a finite difference format. Now this equation also you can write it in a finite difference format. Okay, so of course you can do some algebra and you can write it in a nice, the fashions itself. Yeah, so now we substitute and you can do nicely. So in similar way, say, so now dou v by dou t. Okay, so dou v by dou t, say, so this equation we can write as, 1 by, gamma minus d times delta 2 plus a times delta, so b dou sigma by dou x, okay, with respect to m, plus 2 by, 2 plus a times delta, so theta m minus half. So like this, you can write all the expressions. Okay, so you can write for sigmas and, so you can write all the expressions. I think finally, in similar way you can write for zeta and sigma also. So zeta, m plus 1. So this is, 2 times gamma minus alpha times gamma plus, omega by, a times delta. Oh, sorry. Alpha gamma plus delta into this one. So this is a plus. Okay. Psi of m minus, 1 by gamma. Okay. Delta by, a m into, dou v by dou x. Okay, so this has to be differential, this derivative m plus half. And similarly, say dou sigma by dou t m plus half. So 1 by gamma. So 1 minus this delta by a multiplied by m dou v by dou x. So m plus half plus 2 times gamma say by a zeta of m, and of course a is some constant. Okay, so 2 times gamma plus alpha times gamma plus this into delta. So this is how we represent our equations in a finite difference the format itself. So the same equations. So now you know zeta m plus 1 and all those things. You solve this equation, you will get zeta, and then you substitute, you will get this. Now the only problem is how to represent these things. So you can use the word the staggered. Already we have discussed great detail actually. Okay, so you can go for 2, 4. 2, 2, you remember last class we have seen 4, 4 to represent these derivatives, and so now this is only the finite difference equation to represent this unelastic the coefficients in our this perfectly matched layer. So you do it 2, 2, 2, 4 or 4, 4, and then you solve our solutions. Okay, so this is how we try to solve on our the perfectly matched layer. So how to represent is absorbing the boundary conditions. Okay, so if you see the textbook of Mogzose, okay, so you can he has given all the expressions, and you followed. You can go through those expressions, and he has given in a nice the fashion. Okay, and now you followed it. Now, so now of course the last point in finite difference you followed. Like if you want to have viscoelastic mediums, how do you represent in a finite difference format viscoelastic medium? So already I think we have detailed. So for viscoelastic medium, so right already. So the stress strain relation. Okay, so we write like this. So some mu unrelaxed modulus, you remember all those things, minus L is equal to 1 to n. So these are our coefficients psi L of t. So these for viscoelastic material we used to write like that. Okay, psi L of t. So these are all the coefficients which they satisfy some other ordinary differential equation. So omega L. So dou v by dou x up to n. So these are for viscoelastic medium actually. So the stress strain relation or this stress versus strain rate, or this expression say you can write like this for viscoelastic medium. Now how to write this in a finite difference format? Very simple. Okay, same whatever we did for perfectly matched layer say. So same concept. You can see perfectly matched layer equation, your viscoelastic material equation, both of them are same. Only thing in viscoelasticity, say you have this L goes from 1 to n, so many coefficients will be there. But whereas in the previous case, say you have only one coefficient, so theta and zeta was there, so it was perfectly matched layer, that is sufficient. But now it is you will have all the constants here. So this also you can represent in finite difference format, because all of them are the ordinary differential equations. So you write finite difference equations say for this coefficients psi L of t. So it is very easy. You can straightforward you can writing big equations comes actually. Okay, so you can, I think he has given in that textbook also. So I will write the one equation. So generally for stresses we write like this. So Vi, this is for the velocity, m plus half. Okay, so I think this is 2, 4 scheme he has used. M minus half plus delta d say into F. This is the body force which have M and I plus Bi into delta by H. Okay, so with respect to spatial derivatives, so he has used the fourth order. So Tm I plus the half minus Tm I minus half. Okay, minus 1 by 24 Tm I plus 3 by 2. So he has used a fourth order accuracy. Okay, so this is for the velocity, this equation. Now for the stress equation, say the stress strain. So where your viscoelastic the thing comes, so the equation will be so Tm minus 1 I minus half plus m hat, the unrelaxed modulus which we have, I minus half, so delta by h. So wherever there is a spatial derivative, say, okay, so we write fourth order. So 9 by 8, so vi m minus half minus vi minus 1 m minus half, okay, minus 1 by 24. So vi plus 1 m minus half, so vi minus 2 m minus half, okay. Of course you have this unelastic, these all these coefficients with minus delta L is equal to 1 to n, so you have this unelastic, ym L I minus half and psi L, say I minus half m, okay. So this is our stress strain. Now for the elastic coefficient, so once again that ODE also you have to write, so IL I minus half, so that another ODE is, so 3 ODEs are there, so 2 minus omega L times delta plus 2 plus omega L into delta psi L n minus 1 I minus half, okay. So plus so you have another expression, so 2 omega L into delta, so 1 by h, so 9 by 8, so vi m minus half, so vi minus 1 m minus half, so minus 1 by 24, so vi plus 1 m minus half minus vm minus half, so I minus 2, okay. So these are the equations actually for viscoelastic medium, okay. So one is for velocity, another one is for stress, another one is for our psi L. So this is the extra term. So we have the 3 equations are there. Another one was the velocity, this equation itself. So dou v by, you remember, so dou v by dou t is so b into dou sigma by dou x. So this is given by this expression. So this dou by dou t of sigma t, say, so this is given by this expression, and then this equation for the unelastic coefficient, say. So this is the final difference, the format, okay. So all the 3 equations you have to solve, and this is what type of a scheme. Now what is the accuracy of that order of this scheme? What is the order of this scheme? Now in time domain, what derivatives we have written here? What type of scheme it is? 2 comma 2 or 2 comma 4 or 4 comma 4?
2, 4.
Because in space, all the spatial derivatives we are using, you see here, I plus half, I minus half, I plus 3 by 2, I minus 3 by 2. But when you are computing the time derivatives, we are using only m plus half, m minus half itself. So this scheme is 2 comma 4 scheme itself for viscoelastic medium. If you want to write 4 comma 4, you can write, but that equation will be you follow, right, big actually. So in computing it is easy, but to write on a paper you follow, right, so many things will be there. So this is how we represent, you see, viscoelastic material, how equations in a finite difference approach. So now I think with this you followed, right? I think we have covered almost all the things itself. Now only thing is, how do you represent in 3 dimensions? So the everything is same, but only thing is it will be very followed, right? I will just to show you. Yeah. Yes. So all of you are able to see this paper. Is visible this paper? I am showing.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. So you people can go through this paper. So there is nothing great in this paper. He has written for 3D. It is published in 1996. Okay. So just 3D only. So what he has used is velocity stress formulation actually. Okay, so these are the basic the momentum equations, all of here you can see, right? Then the stress strain relations are there. So what he does is you followed, right? He uses the velocity stress formulation. Okay, so Vx, Vy, Vz are the velocity stresses in 3 dimension. Now these are the stress versus the velocity equation. So he has used with essentially velocity stress formulation, but now this has to be converted into a finite difference format. So now what happens, when you try to do in velocity stress form, what type of grid you will get? See what type of grid you will get. Long back we have discussed, right? So you have to match the time derivative of velocity with the spatial derivative of tau xx actually. Now when you see the shear stresses, how they are shear stresses here, tau x, what is the derivative of tau xy? See here the derivative of tau xy, so what is the derivative here? You are seeing here. What is the derivative? You see the first equation. What is the first equation which you are having here? So now the time derivative of velocity in x direction should be same as the point where you are computing, say it should be same as the spatial derivative of tau xx, then spatial derivative of tau xy, but with respect to y actually. Now generally the spatial derivative of xz with respect to z, you followed, right? So you are having four derivatives. One is time, one is space, one is with respect to y, another one with respect to z. All of them you have to match at a point that m comma I itself. Of course now not only I, you have I, j, k will be there actually. Okay. Now similarly if you see the second equation, say the time derivative of velocity in y direction should be matched with spatial derivative. So shear stresses derivatives are different, then normal stresses derivative is with respect to y. If it is vy, say, then that's dou y will be there. So this is a complexity which comes actual. So now similarly if you see this stress versus velocity equations, also here also we have a issues. See like for example so you can see this equation, right? So now so if you see these equations, say, so now here what is that you have to match? If you see the shear stress equations, see the shear stress equations, the time derivative of shear stress should be matched with spatial derivative of Vx with respect to y, then spatial derivative of Vy with respect to x actual. Okay. So due to this, what type of grid comes? No, naturally, what type of grid comes? See what type of grid comes. Previously we have discussed, right? Staggered grid comes up, but here the staggered grid will be much more complicated actually. Why? This is a grid you get in for when you are calculating in 3D. Now you can see here the this circle, say this is a display. So velocity is defined here, that is velocity in z direction. Now velocity in y direction you have a different grid point. Velocity in x direction you have a different grid point. Normal stresses different grid point. Shear stress is another grid point. You understand? So shear stress also tau xy, tau xz, tau yz, all of them have to be defined at three different points actually. But whereas all the normal stresses can be defined at one point itself, that is at I, j, k, you are defining all the normal stresses. For tau x, y, say, you are defining, you followed at this point, whereas, this tau x, z actual. Okay, so you are defining, you see this place. And tau yz you are defining at I, j plus half, k plus half actually. You followed. So this is a, automatically the staggered grid comes. Why you get this type of a staggered grid? Because you have to match variety of you see the derivatives actually. That's why you see the staggered grid comes, and so this complicates. So these are our finite difference equations actually. Okay, so he has given this paper. I will send it to you in WhatsApp also, so you can see. So these are the finite difference equations. So these for the velocities, then this for the displacements. So this is stress versus this itself. So now so he uses what type of scheme? So this is for the temporal derivative. He has used the 2, that is a grid number 2 he has used. Now for grid with respect to spatial, say, okay, so he uses I think I don't what grid he has used. I think 2, 2 only, I think maybe. So sorry, fourth order system he is telling. Okay, so for the fourth order system, 4 spatial adjacent planes are required, he says, and he solves in a this computer kind of a thing. Okay, and now when it comes to the so these are the he has given all the detailed the staggered grid or something, and finally so what type of boundary condition he uses? Zero stress formulations are there here. All 3 stresses will be 0 now. Okay, so now what is the, when you are having a free stresses, when the surface is stress free, what did we say? Boundary code, how to represent a free surface? What is that you have to do? If you want to make stress 0, say, what is that you have to do?
You have to consider asymmetric conditions.
Antisymmetric, okay.
Antisymmetric.
So now you see here what he has written, tau xz is same as minus tau xz. Tau yz is same as minus tau yzi, and tau zz is same as minus tau of z. Tau zz is minus tau xz. You followed, right? He writes the boundary conditions like this. So they represent, you see, a free surface actual. Okay. And now he goes for this absorbing also. I think this fellow what vacuum formulation he has given, stable he has done. No. See, this is anelastic attenuation actual. Okay, so he has used this expression also. And finally say, I think absorbing where he has used, oh god, somewhere we have missed. Vacuum surface topography says is not required. This is the surface topography. Free surface he has used. He has used paraxial boundary conditions. Okay, so I am searching where he has written. This is for the moment tensor. See here, you are seeing here absorbing boundary condition. You are able to see here absorbing boundary section he has written. Visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What type of boundary condition he has used? Horrible fellow. So what is that he has used?
Absorbing bond.
No, what is that? We had three, no, absorbing paraxial. Okay. A1 is useless, right? What
A1.
happens to A1?
Error will be more.
So in the Taylor series, he has not even done a Taylor series expansion. He has done only the first term away in Taylor series is one only followed. No, it's very easy actually. That's why you see he has implemented. Okay, so this whatever he has done, say followed, right? So results will not be accurate near the boundaries, but far away from the boundary it will be fine. But near the boundaries you can't trust these fellows. This thing. This is a very old paper. So in 1996, which is the most famous. Paraxial boundary conditions was widely used actually. After that, 1996 and 2000, people throwed this paraxial. Now everybody does, your PML approach. If you see this Mogzo textbook, no, he has discussed about this, PML boundary conditions rather than this absorbing boundary conditions. Okay, so fine. So I will stop here. So I will send you this paper also. So next we will continue in our next class. So with this, I think we are almost followed, right? We will close our this finite difference. So we will start with the finite element or pseudo spectral methods. You see, maybe next class or hopefully you see by next week we will start with our other things. Okay, is it fine?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Hey Bhargavi, you are there?
Yes, sir.
You are free, no? Now.
Yes, sir.
Hey Jahnavi, you are also there, no?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So others can leave. I just want to talk to Bhargavi and Jahnavi. Okay. Both of you are there, no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
See Bhargavi, this I just wanted followed, right? This this Nepal paper.
Yes, sir.
See this. I think this Jahnavi you have sent to her, or what is the status?
Which, sir? IMFs.
Yes, yes. That Nepal.
No, sir. I haven't sent yet, sir. I was doing that that central frequency thing. Then I thought I will send everything together.
No. I just wanted to know from Bhargavi and both of you, right? What we are going to put in that paper,
Okay. As of now, one thing I want to highlight is that long period. Everyone is saying that the earthquake specifically has this amplifications in the long period range. But no one actually quantified that and no one actually showed that. So I thought maybe if we can do that with respect to sediment depth and all, maybe we can show that in our frequency parameters.
No, but that is
That
not
would be
happening, right? In the see, she has done all the 20 parameters or 30 parameter, whatever she has done. But she did not, when she plotted with sediment depth, we did not get any interesting result, right?
Oh, that's because I mean, we have discussed actually, Jahnavi and I, we have talked about this. She has directly plotted with respect to sediment depth. She's
Okay.
not accounting the distance from the epicenter in that
Okay.
comparison. Maybe if we can compare that, see the sediment
How
depth
do
and
you
all is
remember, how do you
105.
remove that distance from that one, then the plots?
From the thinking, we can check, either we can check with we can group the distances. I mean, we can group for different epicentral distances ranges, or we can plot some isoseasonal kind of thing. I'm not sure yet, but once I get the data, I'll I'll plot different variations
No,
and
no.
check.
One way is see, like for example, how do you remove distance from the the calculations? So if you want to remove the distance dependency, say on the ground motion, the easiest way is what is the easiest way? See, like how distance is like geometrical attenuation, 1 by r.
Mm-hmm.
You remember, right? One easy is 1 by r is the attenuation with respect to r. Okay. So now if you have the data, say you multiply, you normalize them with respect to distance. Distance is gone, no?
Oh, yeah.
You understand, right? What I'm talking. See,
Yes, sir.
PGA is basically inversely proportional to 1 by r. You follow, right? PGA
Yes.
is 1 by r kind of a thing. So if I remove 1 by r, say, I mean, we are, you followed, right? We are, removing the distance at, we are normalizing them. That maybe, then if you compare, we will get, right, some interesting result.
Yes, sir.
That means you
That's
have
certainly
removed the
we can check
dependent.
with that.
No, other thing what I asked Jahnavi her is, this Sangeeta's paper, you are aware, no? Bhargavi, that long back I
Uh,
wrote, you remember, myself, EMD something.
okay, the first
Advances in
IMF paper
adaptive.
in our group. Yes, sir.
Yes. That advanced adaptive methods I have written, no? So there, that paper we have done in great detail. I have shown her the IMFs. Then you remember, no, that I think the contribution of IMFs, then instantaneous frequency plots, all kinds of things we have done actually. Okay.
Yes.
So what I told Jahnavi was to get all those plots.
Okay.
You followed, right? So instantaneous frequency, she just plotted Hilbert-Wang transform, HHT only. Okay.
Yeah, I've seen the paper. Yes.
Even the IMFs, I think some IMF she gave and simply HHT was plotted. What I am asking is, for the first IMF, what is the instantaneous frequency? For the second IMF, what is instantaneous frequency? Plot all of them, right?
Okay.
You understand, right?
Yes, sir.